planes. Because she wasn't supposed to be in that scene. I was supposed to have the skinny Arab guy who was supposed to be sitting back there. And he goes, oh, he says, it doesn't make a difference where he's sitting. And I'm going, yeah, it does. But she sat down, she goes, oh, you don't have to worry about putting down the cider. And I'm going, yeah, because it wouldn't fit between you and me. But anyway, the plane was canceled, and we all filed off. And to get a new plane. So, and it took a gentleman from Mississippi. Now, I don't know if I can have that accent. He says, Jesus is in control, you know. There's a reason why he didn't want us on that plane. And I go, you're probably right. Of course, then they pulled all the planes in the United States off. So, anyway, that was my experience. Especially after I told you guys to, you know, always take advantage of the people next to you because there's a reason why God has them sitting next to you. I'm afraid I wasn't. I thought, yeah, I want the skinny one though to witness to. But anyway, I don't even think she flew that day. She changed her plans. But we're all here, safe and sound, and God is in control. So we'll have prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this Sabbath day. We're small in numbers, but we're here to worship you and learn about you. We would like the church to increase a little. If you could help in this direction and show us the way to bring people here. We thank you for this past week, whatever adventures we've had this past week. And in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Good morning, everybody. We're small, but I heard all of you sing, and I know you sing well. So we're expecting you to go.
Well, not much.
Well, I heard you play guitar. So please
No
join
offense, Tim, I'm
us.
coming back here. Were your voices drowned out by other voices?
Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord. Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord. And he shall lift you up higher and higher, and he shall lift you up. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, love. Our God is an
pass. Cuddles and slide.
No, there was a missing slide, so
Okay.
that's what's going on. I was trying to make it happen, so listen to Paul, guys, just keep singing.
All right, our next song is a hymn, Be Thou My Vision. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best art, thy day or thy night. Waking or sleeping, thy presence my guide. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I am with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, and my righteous Son. Thou with me dwelling, and I with thee one. Riches I need not, nor man's empty gain. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou art only, first in my heart. My King of heaven, my treasure thou art. My King of heaven, my victory won. May I reach heaven's gates, all bright as sun. Oh, Lord, my own heart, whatever befalls, still be my vision, O ruler of all. All right, our last song is You Are My All in All. You are my strength when I am weak. You are the treasure that I seek. You are my all in all. Seeking you as a precious jewel, Lord, to give up I'd be a fool. You are my all in all. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Taking my sin, my cross, my shame, rising again, I bless your name. You are my all in all. When I fall down, you pick me up. When I
Sabbath, everybody. All right. Seems like you guys have fallen asleep there. I'm glad you guys are awake. Good to see everybody. Good to see you, Nolan. Good to see you, Christy. Good to see you, Paul, Michelle, Garrett, Sarah. Caitlin, I'm just messing with you. Caitlin. Of course I know your name. I wrote your name down, remember? Yes, Caitlin, good to see you. What? What do you say?
What?
You spelled it wrong. No, it was almost a perfect score, but I fell a little short. Yeah, Laura, good to see you. Claire, Tim, Kevin, my family, good to see everybody. Anyway, I'm acknowledging every one of you because one of the things that happens in a small group like ours is when we sometimes don't have the full strength of the entire group, it feels a little discouraging, right? So that's one thing I've been struggling with for a long time, for some time now. It's just sometimes we have people traveling, we don't have everybody here. It's a little discouraging sometimes, but the thing that I always have to come back to is that this is not my church, right? Before I became part of this is God's plan. God already had a plan for this place. God has a plan for Granger. There is no church in this area. It's been a mission of ours for years to plant something here. But sometimes you just gotta step out in faith, right? You gotta step out and just see what God does with what we do. So today we're going to talk about faith. We're going to talk about pain. We're going to talk about humility. And we're going to talk about that from the perspective of a great army general. It's going to be interesting that Paul is here today because he served in the military. I served in the military. I don't know if anybody else served in the military here. No? Okay. Oh, Michelle did? Oh, yes. Yes. Air Force, right? Yeah. Yes. I remember now. Yes. So it's we're going to talk about an army general, and we're going to learn some lessons from his life. So the first thing I kind of want to ask you guys: have you ever been in pain? I assume everybody here has it, right? At some point in time, you have been in pain, right? So pain. When we are in pain, we are usually desperate for relief, right? So when we are in pain, we're desperate for relief. I'm sure most of you at some point in time have experienced some excruciating pain. I see some mothers in the audience here. I know that you, at some point in time in your life, have gone through something that we men can never understand. The closest I've heard people say is like kidney stone, but I've heard it's even worse than that, right? And so we cannot understand the pain that you guys have gone through. But during the times when we're in pain, nothing else really matters usually. We're looking for relief. Relief is what we need at that point in time. So the pain that we experience is not always physical. Sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes it's financial. Sometimes it's even spiritual, right? Whichever one it is, the common thread is that people in pain are in need of relief. They need something, they're desperate. We seek relief in substances sometimes. Sometimes we seek relief in other people. We seek relief sometimes in God, right? So sometimes when we seek relief in God, when we do so, God has an uncanny way of teaching us a lesson in that process, right? He takes our pain and he turns it into victory. And in that process, we learn a lot of things about God. We learn about ourselves. We learn about him. Today, we will have a conversation, like I mentioned, about a well-known man who was in pain and desperately in need of relief. Naaman. Naaman is the man we're going to talk about today. You see, Naaman was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of his day. And that's what you think about when you think about Naaman. A military leader of one of the region's most powerful nations. He was a definite candidate for who's who, and he, at that point in time, was the cream of the crop. So Naaman lived among the upper crust. He mingled with the elite. Naaman seemed to have everything that you could possibly think about. But Naaman was in pain. And we'll talk about that. Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank you so much for life. We thank you for the privilege that we have to be here today as friends, as family, to study your word. These are not my words, they're your words. This is not my message, this is your message. I pray, Father in heaven, that today we may just hear the words that I share, that we actually put these words in practice in our lives. Please be with us and be with those who are not here. And I pray that you bless our fellowship together today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, so we're going to talk about Naaman. So let us begin by looking at the book of 2 Kings, right? So 2 Kings chapter 5. So 2 Kings chapter 5, and we're going to go through 1 to 15 eventually. but we're going to start with verse 1. So 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 1. So it says, now Naaman was a commander of the army of the king of Aram. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. He was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. So do you see all the descriptors? So 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 1. Don't we all want to have these same descriptors in front of our names? Commander. He was great, highly regarded, victorious, valiant. He was a man that had power, position, and prestige. He was successful. He was a winner. He was wealthy. He was a hero. He was respected. He was admired. He was envied. But usually when you're talking to somebody and you say a whole bunch of stuff, and then you say but, people typically forget everything else you said before that. Yeah. You might as well be talking to the wall. Everything you said is gone, right? So once you hear the word but, all we start to think about is what are you going to say next? But what? What is that they're going to say? Nolan is a great student, but, right? That's what he's going to be listening to right now. What is the but? What are you going to say, Fred? Lara's kids' Sabbath school is very good, but, and she's like, okay, but what? What are you going to say, Fred? Right? So that's how we think about Shauna, for example, who's not here. She hopefully will watch this later on. Her food is great, but. Right? I know, right? So that's what we think about. So it's like, but what? What exactly are you going to say? We don't care about what was said before. All we care about once we hear that word is what comes next. What are they going to say? So the Bible begins, this verse begins with verse 1 talking about all the wonderful things about Naaman. And the verse ends, Naaman was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. Wow. Naaman could think about all of his accomplishments. He could enjoy his power and position and prestige. He could admire his home and his wealth, all he wanted. But all of that seemed to vanish. As he stared in the mirror every single day, each time he looked at himself, there was something looking back at him. Something that defined his life. He was a leper, and nothing could change that fact. He was a leper. He had all these wonderful things. Commander, great, victorious, valiant, hero. But he was a leper. Everything else didn't matter. You see, in those days, so just to put it in context, leprosy was how people treated AIDS and HIV in the 80s and 90s here. Lepers were isolated and humiliated. They were outcasts, the original untouchables. They were forced to wear torn clothing, and everywhere they went, lepers had to shout, unclean, 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 so people can walk away. That's who lepers were. Leprosy was the most feared disease of the day. It was extremely contagious and in many cases incurable. In its worst forms, leprosy led to death. Leprosy was feared. There was nothing worse than being a leper. Naaman knew that this disease was only going to get worse and eventually take his life. While his prior accomplishments afforded him some level of respect, right? He was a military commander, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. People knew him because he was a great hero, and people respected him. But Naaman knew that eventually, nobody would touch him. Eventually, everyone would avoid him. Eventually, he would become an outcast. Eventually. Imagine how he felt. He must have sat for hours on end contemplating his future, wondering, how did I get here?
As humans, we often do this. He probably started off like hiding this, putting on a brave face, seeming like everything was okay. He did his best to hide his pain. Like Naaman, what problems do you and I today try to conceal? What pain, what hurt are you trying to keep under wraps? We, like Naaman, have become rather good at trying to cover up our problems. The key word here is trying, right? The problem is just like leprosy, eventually the word will get out. Eventually our problems will spread and become so painful that we have no choice but to cry out. Eventually that is going to happen. So what do we do in these situations? Where do we go to find help? Where do we go for healing? Do we turn to substances? Do we turn to other people? Where do we find relief when things have become so hard? The answer is to go down, folks. We must go down literally and figuratively. We must go down on our knees in prayer. We must climb off our perch of self-importance and go down to where God is calling us to go. We must go to where God is offering us healing. Let us keep reading. So in 1 Kings chapter 5, for those who are coming in, welcome guys. 1 Kings chapter 5. And so we're going to go to verse 2 and 3. So 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 2 and 3. So 2 Kings chapter 5. So in verse 2 and 3 it says, Now bands of raiders from Aram had gone out and had taken captive a young girl from Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, If only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. So obviously the word had gone out. The word had gotten out for his wife's servant to now make a recommendation. People now knew that Naaman had leprosy. Let's just imagine what's going through Naaman's mind as he hears this recommendation, right? Israel, I mentioned at the beginning in verse 1, was a conquered nation. To Naaman, Israel was a second-rate, third world country. What could Israel possibly offer him? Aram, for those who don't know, were the Assyrians. You read several times in the Bible where the Syrians and Assyrians were always a pain to the Israelites, always conquering them, pillaging, rampaging them, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So at that time, they were the military power of the region. And Israel was just some backwoods country to them. They had nothing to offer. To make matters worse, this was a slave girl from a third world country who was giving him medical advice. Really? The slave of my wife is telling me, Naaman, the hero, the commandant, that I should go to this backwoods country for healing. Not only did she tell him to go to Israel, she told him to go to Samaria. Samaria. So if Israel was a second-rate country, a third world country, in Naaman's mind, Samaria was the armpit. Was even worse. Now you're telling me to go to this backwards country, and most of all, you're telling me to go to Samaria. In his mind, he's like, really? Even the Israelites themselves despised Samaria. Interestingly, that was the capital of Israel at that time. But because of all the corruption and all that was going on there, people despised this place. What is the lesson here? Well, when we are at our most desperate, God sends us relief in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes the people we least expect are the ones that God sends our way. Quite often, we have to get over ourselves in order to receive God's healing. We have to humble ourselves in order to see what God has in store for us. Naaman had to get over himself. He had to get over himself to receive God's healing. He had to forget the fact that he was a commander, he was a hero, he was victorious, he was all these things, and he had to listen to a slave girl from a backwards country who was sending him to a slum. Whatever it is that Naaman was thinking at that point in time, the one thing we do know that the Bible tells us about him is what he does next. We don't know exactly what he was thinking. We can only speculate. But we do know what the Bible says that Naaman did after that. So in verse 4, let's keep reading in verse 4, 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 4. Naaman went to his master and told him what the girl from Israel had said. By all means go, the king of Aram replied. I will send a letter to the king of Israel. So Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. The letter that he took to the king of Israel read, with this letter I am sending my servant Naaman to you, so that you may cure him of leprosy. As soon as the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his robes and said, Am I God? Can I kill and bring back to life? Why does this fellow send someone to me to be cured of his leprosy? See how he is trying to pick a quarrel with me. When Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes, he sent him this message. Why have you torn your robes? Have the man come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel. Wow. Throughout Scripture, the nation of Israel is used as a metaphor for the church. The church is supposed to be a safe place. The church is supposed to be a place of healing. A place that gives a caring touch in an uncaring world. A place that provides sanctuary, protection, comfort. A place that extends a supportive hand to those in trouble. But a church is just more than just those things. A church, most of all, is the place where we come to commune with our God. Oftentimes, we come to church and we end up missing the point. Naaman went to Israel. He was in the right place, but he was talking to the wrong person. He went to Israel and went to the king. Gave the letter that his king gave to him to give to the king. The king totally misunderstood, and he thought that Naaman and the king of Aram were trying to pick a fight. How many of us come to church every Sabbath to hang out with our friends, enjoy the music, eat the food, but leave not having communed with the person we're supposed to be talking to? How many of us are focused on how other people treat us in church, while failing to recognize how much Christ loves us and has a sacrifice for us? How many of us come to church to impress our friends with our knowledge of the Bible and fail to receive the revival that the Holy Spirit is trying to impress upon our hearts? I don't know about you guys, but I, for one, am guilty as charged. Naaman was at the right place, but speaking to the wrong person. Naaman was at the right place, but doing the wrong thing. The good news is that God was not done with Naaman. He came to Israel, the backwards country. But he was in the wrong place, talking to the wrong people. In verse 9 to 10, it says, So Naaman went with his horses and chariots. So remember now, Elijah had sent word, Come to me, send Naaman to me, and he will know there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman now leaves the king, and he's going towards where Elisha lives, right? So Naaman went with his horses and his chariots and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to say to him, Go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed. Go and wash yourself in the Jordan, and you'll be cleansed. I'm missing this part here. There are several things going on here. We started out with the lowly slave girl talking to Naaman. Naaman listened to what she said eventually. He goes to his king, gets permission, gets a letter, a diplomatic pouch. He leaves with a bunch of money. He leaves with his entourage. And now he's going to Israel. Right? This was an official state visit. In verse 9 it says, Naaman arrived at Elisha's house with his horses and chariots. Can you imagine this concept? This was an impressive sight. It's just not Naaman just showing up. He came, a military commander, with his motorcade. He had all the horses, he had the chariots, he had all the soldiers, all of that noise, all of that pomp and circumstance showing up at Elisha's apartment, pretty much. And they knock at the door. All this noise, all this commotion. I remember years ago, I was in a conference in Philadelphia, and I had no idea what was going on in the city. I come out of the conference, I'm like, well, it's been a long day, we've just been in sessions all day. I was like, man, I'm tired, I was sitting around, I'm tired, I gotta go home. So I was going back to my hotel. I come down, and there are all these cops everywhere. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? What's going on? I was like, maybe there's a shooting? I was like, man, it's my first time in Philly. I've heard about Philly, man. Maybe something's going on down here. So I was like watching, I was on a high alert. It's like, what is going on? I see cops everywhere. Then all of a sudden I see a siren, I see the motorcade, boom, 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 flying through. I was like, whoa, what's going on? I had no idea that Obama, this was when Obama was president. This is my first time ever seeing a motorcade. I've never seen it before. Folks, it's something. I've never seen it before. It was in person. I've seen it on TV, obviously. But it was loud. It was kind of intimidating. I was in the military. You see all these guys with guns. I'm like, whoa, that was a lot of guns everywhere, man. The guys were in there. It was their helmets, their gear, everything, tactical gear. It was intense. And they flying through, and they cars are moving really fast. I was like, nobody better stay on the road because they're going to get run over. They are moving really fast through Philadelphia. And they close, and you see the cops show up, close the roads, side roads they're going through and everything. And it was such an impressive and intense sight. And I can think about what's going on here. This is the motorcade of that time. His chariots, his soldiers, all these people, boom, 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 all the horses, all of that, making so much noise. And they get to Elisha's house, his apartment. I'm sure he lived in a little place. He's a prophet, he doesn't have that much money. And boom, 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 and knock on the door. What happened? Elisha sends a messenger to tell Naaman, go take a bath. Really? All that commotion, all that noise, all that pomp and circumstance. Elisha doesn't even take the time to meet Naaman himself. He doesn't even welcome him to someone, oh yeah, Naaman, please come on in. No, he doesn't even talk to him. Instead, he sends a messenger and tells him to go dip himself in some dirty water. Not once, not twice, 7 times. What does Naaman do? Verse 11. But Naaman went away angry and said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the spot and cure me of leprosy. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? So he turned and went off in a rage. Not surprising. He was ticked off. I'm actually surprised he didn't do anything drastic, because the dude is who he is, the military commander, and he just got disrespected. I really can't say I blame him. I can only imagine what he felt. I can imagine Naaman, sorry, not Nathan, but Naaman thinking to himself, bro, are you for real? You want me, Naaman, the commander, the valiant, the victorious, the hero? You didn't even come out to say hi to me. You never greeted me. You didn't say anything to me. And your advice for me is to go take a bath. If a bath is all I needed, there are several beaches and wonderful rivers in my country. I could have taken a bath in there, over there. So many options for me. I come all the way over here, and now you're telling me to go dip in that swamp. I don't think so. You see, Naaman was a big shot, obviously, we can tell. It begins telling us how big of a shot he was. He wanted to meet a big shot prophet, to meet him at the door, and for the prophet to heal him. Not only did he want this prophet to meet him and heal him, he wanted this prophet to jump and shout and dance and put on a big show for his healing to occur. But God does not always send his blessings and the people who bring those blessings the way we want. Oftentimes God chooses people we think are lowly, the ordinary, to bring his blessings to us. You see, Naaman was part of the pastor-only crowd. The crowd that believes that they cannot be ministered to if the pastor doesn't do the ministry. The crowd that believes that they cannot be prayed for if the pastor doesn't do the praying. The crowd that believes that they cannot be preached to if the pastor is not doing the preaching. The crowd that believes they cannot be visited if the pastor is not doing the visiting. We have to be very careful, brothers and sisters, if we find ourselves in this pastor-only crowd or the big shot-only crowd. Because we run the risk of totally missing God's healing because we are so focused, looking for someone or something on what God intends for us. Quite often we receive the touch of God, we receive God's healing, God's blessings. But because it was not spectacular enough for us, we either check it up to coincidence, to luck, or worse yet, we dismiss it as not real. Well, it never really happened. That wasn't God. Because it wasn't spectacular enough for what we're looking for. Ask yourselves, brothers and sisters, what is God doing in your life, in my life, that I am overlooking or not thanking him for? What am I simply ignoring because it's not packaged the way I want it? What gifts am I rejecting because it wasn't delivered by my favorite UPS guy? Huh? What is it in our lives that we're ignoring? Let's go back to Naaman again, verse 13. So Naaman's servants in verse 13 went to him. So remember, he's now mad. He's ticked off. We're out of here, people. So they turn around the motorcade, they're leaving. But his servants went to him and said, "My father, if the prophet had told you to do something great or some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he tells you, wash and be cleansed?" So he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God had told him, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. Wow. It didn't even say it went back to how it was before. It says it became clean like that of a young boy, like a baby's bottom. That's some serious stuff right there. His skin was better than it was in the first place. But the funny thing about this part of the story is that another servant, notice this again. It wasn't one of his captains. It wasn't one of his military leaders, his subordinates. It's a servant that came to him again, this time around, and says, "My father, listen to the prophet." Whatever we think about Naaman, one thing we do notice with him, though, is his ability to listen to his servants. This is remarkable. He could have dismissed the slave girl at the beginning. He could have dismissed this servant at this point in time. Even in his pride, in his hurt, we see Naaman humble himself enough to listen to a servant. We can speculate that this could be because he was simply desperate, or we can see this as a testament to the fact that he was willing to go down to where God wanted him to be. Either way, what we do know is that Naaman obeyed. He went from Aram to Israel. He left the king's courts and went to Samaria. He was leaving, he listened to a servant. He went to the Jordan and dipped himself 7 times. He listened, regardless of what it is that was going on in his mind. Naaman obviously had doubts. He must have had doubts the entire time. But he did it anyway. God doesn't always expect that our faith is rock solid every single time. He doesn't expect us to always agree with him. But what he wants from us is to believe that his way is better than our way. We may not always understand his way of working, but by humbly obeying, we will receive his blessings. Pretty much what God wants is for us to trust him. No matter how we feel about what he's doing or what he's telling us to do, he wants us to trust him. You see, Naaman was told to dip in the dirty Jordan River 7 times. 7 times. Today, God is asking some of us to dip 7 times in the Jordan River as well. He's asking us to step into the muck, into something that may not look appealing at first from outside. He's saying to you and I, trust me. I want you fully immersed, not halfway, fully immersed in there. This is where your healing is. When God asks for 7 times, do not try to give him 4 or 5 or 6. 7 means 7. God wants us to go the distance. God is not trying to put preconditions to his healing. What he's trying to do is test our obedience. How much do you trust him? My son, my daughter. I mentioned earlier that before we can find healing, we must go down on our knees and to where God wants us to go. We must climb up our perch of comfort and self-importance. And we must go to where God wants us to go. Naaman's healing gives us a lot to ponder. His experience was profound. It was interesting. Notice the contrast in his life. Naaman, the commander-in-chief, finds direction through a captive servant, his wife's slave. Naaman, the conqueror, finds help in a conquered nation, Israel. Naaman, the highly regarded man, learns of his treatment from a lowly prophet, Elisha. Not even Elisha, actually. Elisha's messenger. Naaman, the wealthy and valiant soldier, is cured in a dirty river, the Jordan. Naaman had to go way, 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 way down from where he was. And what happens in verse 15? And he says, then Naaman and all his attendants, this stuff he's been cured now, went back to the man of God. He stood before him and said, now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant. Notice that this time around, Elisha actually means something, right? Because he's standing in front of the man of God and he's saying this stuff, he's confessing. There is no other God in all the world except here. Naaman went from a sick man to a healed man, an ungodly man to a godly man, a lost man to a saved man, a great man to a gracious man, and from a commander of men to a servant. At the end, he says, please accept a gift from your servant. It's kind of funny. all the people that have been talking about this entire time have been servants. Now Naaman has brought himself to that level. I am no longer the commandant. I am no longer the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I am no longer the hero, the victorious, the Naaman, the hero guy. I am now a servant. Here was a man who through humility had experienced God's healing, and he was forever changed. It takes humility to share our pain, our shortcomings with others. It takes humility to ask for help. It takes a lot of humility because we think we got it. It takes humility to see that God sometimes sends us the least expected person to help us. It takes humility to see how God is working in our lives. It takes a lot of humility to obey God when everything in your bone, in your fiber, believes contrary to what God is telling you. It takes humility. I started this whole sermon talking about my struggles with church plant. My fiber is saying, oh, Fred, this is too hard. It takes humility to give it up and say, God is in control. This is not my church. This is his church. I started out today not expecting to see most of you guys here today. I knew Chelsea was going to be here. She told me she was going to be here. I wasn't sure John was going to be here. I wasn't sure Ben was going to be here. It was good to see you guys. But God brought you guys here today. I prayed a lot this morning because when Shauna told me that she was sick and she couldn't make it, I was like, I wonder who's going to be here. I wasn't even expecting you to be here. It takes humility, folks. In the midst of whatever we're going through, in the midst of our challenges, I pray that each and every one of us, just like Naaman, humble ourselves in the mighty hand of God so we may receive the relief that he freely offers each and every one of us. Amen.
All right, at this point, we have our praise reports and prayer request time. I know that we're missing a few because of spring break. So Mateo is in Puerto Rico. Did he make it there safe?
Yeah, he did.
Alex is in Cuba, Chrissy and Olivia and their PT community is in Lebanon. I don't remember everyone who's gone, but it is spring break time, so people are traveling and absent. So if you have any to add to this list, any praises or prayer requests? Yes, Christy.
I just want to praise God for all the amazing things that he's doing in my life. My mom had been looking for a car, and she just bought a new car, and I'm really happy for her. I recently got a job opportunity and interviewed this Wednesday, so I'm happy for that. And Nolan took his test for the Air Force, and his test went pretty good. So a lot of good things are happening, and I just want to praise God. He's amazing.
Yeah, congratulations. Anyone else?
I want to praise God that we all made it here today with Fred.
Yes. I don't know if the time change kicked anyone else in the butt, but it really did for me. I think that they should make spring break correspond with time change. Or get rid of time change.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Yes.
There are places that don't time change. They're doing fine.
We used to be one of them.
Let's go back. All right, I ask if you will bow your heads with me and I'll pray. God, I want to thank you for Sabbath, for the opportunity to be here as a community to worship you. Whatever the reason that we've come today, whether it was for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, I pray that you will convert it to be the right reason. Speak through our friends, speak through our family here at this church. We're thankful that we're here and we're here for a reason. And God, sometimes we don't know the way, we don't know the reason things are happening in our lives, but we know that you're working, you know better than us. We have a few prayer requests and some praises as well this morning. I want to pray that you'll be with those who are not with us because of spring break traveling. We're thankful for those that have safely arrived to their destinations, whether it be Cuba or Puerto Rico or Lebanon or anywhere else, God. We're thankful that Kirsten has also made it safely to Cape Cod. We pray that you will bless her in her journey as she's there as well. God, we want to thank you that you've been with Christy and her mom as they've been searching for a car. I know that transportation is a really big deal, so we're thankful that they were able to find a vehicle that will suit their needs. We'd also like to pray that you will bless Christy as she prepares for her job interview on Wednesday, and may the outcome be what you want it to be for her, because you know best. And we're thankful for the results, or at least the feeling of confidence that Nolan had in his test for the Air Force. God, we're thankful that we've made it here despite time change. I pray that our bodies will adjust. And as we continue throughout the rest of this day, you give us a blessed Sabbath, bless our communion over food, and give us a good week until we return again next week.